If everyone would please take your seats, we are about ready to begin our next meeting. I know Mr. Co-Chair. Oh, you moved down one? Good. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Storm. Here. Senator Turner. Here. Senator Wilson. Senator Yates. Representative Bridges. Representative Fugate.
Here.
Representative Heverin.
Present.
Representative Huff.
Present.
Representative McPherson. Representative Pratt.
Here.
Representative Roberts.
Here.
Representative Stevenson. Here. Representative Upchurch.
Here.
Co-Chair Higdon. Here. Chair Santoro.
Here. We are duly able now to have a meeting. I need someone to make a motion to approve, and I need a second. Second, so moved. First on the agenda. First off, remember everyone, please turn your cell phones off. Secretary Gray, please step forward. You're first on the agenda. As my cohort says, the master of disasters is here. You have anything, Senator?
I said, thank you, and Mr. Secretary, thank you all for being here today. But I know that nickname is, or that phrase is perfect for you in a very positive way. But I was not the one that coined that phrase. My co-chair was the one that and so even though I like it and I use it, I do not want to take total responsibility for it coming to be. So again, thank you all, and thank you for being here today.
Let me just say, as I said before, when you were way too generous with that, Senator Higdon and Chair Santoro, that we're led by a governor who cares about this and is keeping us on our toes, that's for sure. And we're standing on the shoulders of as many as 4,400 employees in the Transportation Cabinet. Wow. And so many of them, especially Department of Highways, led by James Ballinger, State Highway Engineer, who's sitting right behind me, have been involved in this recovery effort. And just I can't begin to say what the word proud means to be in a role like I have today, and how proud I am of the work that these folks have done, both the front lines and those who are supporting the effort.
Very good.
So,
please
I'm sorry,
introduce yourselves
myself.
so we get it on the record, and then the
Yes,
floor
sir.
is yours. You're the best. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. Jim Gray, Secretary of Transportation Cabinet, and I am flanked here by two extraordinary people, employees of the Cabinet. Kenny Bishop, who, as you all know, is the legislative liaison and does an extraordinary job. John Moore, Deputy State Highway Engineer, who works with James Ballinger and who is the remarkable project manager for this project. I said to Senator Higdon that one of the fortunate things of a very unfortunate situation with the flooding is that we learned a lot through the tornado experience, and we've translated a lot of that. John Moore has been a leader in that. He's been stationed at the EOC almost daily. We have had, up until this week, last week, we've had daily internal meetings, virtual Teams meetings with all the team, as many as 35 involved in the Cabinet's leadership on the project, from the state highway, the chief district engineers in the districts most affected, 10, 11, and 12, to procurement agents and others who have been so active in the project. So I'm just enormously thankful. As I said, we stand on the shoulders of these folks, and I appreciate John and his work and his team's work so much. He's here to help me with questions or any comments that we may receive, and I just wanted him to be here. Last time I think we were here, Corbett Caudle, who is Chief District Engineer in District 10, right, 10 and 11. I sometimes get confused, but Corbett and Chris. And Corbett was here and gave a full, really a heartfelt account, of course. All right, so we have some slides. Some of these slides are going to be before and afters. And Representative Fugate, I don't know whether we've got one of your site or not, but I know that work's being done, and we can talk about that. So I appreciate this opportunity to be with you again to talk specifically about the Transportation Cabinet's role in the response and recovery. We are fortunate that we have had, I mentioned the daily calls that we have had. We've also had daily and three times a week calls with the interagency, other cabinet secretaries and their staffs, and the governor and his staff. And this has occurred. First it was daily, and now it's 3 times a week. So the first, let me recap just a bit. The floods occurred in the last week of July, resulting in 13 counties being included in President Biden's disaster declaration. Ever since that first night, it's been all hands on deck at the Transportation Cabinet, with every department and office and every highway district across the state involved in the response. Out of these terrible circumstances can come valuable experience. I've already said that. And so the Cabinet was specifically tasked in 5 areas. The initial cleaning up of roadways so that first responders could get into the flood area. So we, in many respects, the Transportation Cabinet was the first of the first responders that night and the next day and then following days. Our second scope of responsibility was to inspect and assess the damage to roads and bridges, which included helping counties. We went outside our lane here, and we've gone outside our traditional lane in a number of these areas, but we included helping counties whose own road departments were overwhelmed. We deployed travel trailers for emergency shelter. We took the first 80 from those that were remaining still from the purchase in Western Kentucky, the travel trailers that had been purchased for the tornado recovery in Western Kentucky. We've cleared the enormous accumulation of flood debris, both from the rights of way and from area waterways. And finally, we are already begun the repairing of broken infrastructure. Those among the 1,100 bridges that were assessed on county and state roads, 175 were identified as needing repair or a full rebuild. So we've completed the first 2 parts of the overall mission. We're still involved in the last 3, the sheltering, the debris removal, and the infrastructure repair. Okay, Kenny, we can go to the next slide. This shows the travel trailers at Jenny Wiley Park. It's one of 8 sites where our crews have installed travel trailers for sheltering. As of Monday, we've installed 249 trailers. 162 of them are ready for occupancy. Okay, next slide. This is just a group shot that some of you may remember. Chairman Santoro, Chairman Higdon, we were in Corbett Caudle's office in District 10 in Jackson. This was about a week after the floods. And this was when the chairs came down for a first-hand look at the damage. We're also shown here with Breathitt County Judge Executive Jeff Noble and State Highway Engineer James Ballinger, who's here with us today as well. We've worked closely with Judge Noble and other judges and mayors in all the affected cities and counties. It's been a real collaboration, and I can say the same about the other agencies that we've worked with. As a reminder, go to the next slide, Kenny. Yeah, as a reminder of the challenge that our crews have faced, this image shows a shot of Kentucky 451 in Perry County, one of the most severely damaged roadways in the entire region. You can see it was completely demolished in this slide, and there is a large slide. Next slide. This shows part of the solution in repairing Kentucky 451. This is at Krypton in Perry County. So you can see the really significant size of the repair work. And this is just one of, literally more than 100 identified for city, for county and state, 175 repairs or complete rebuilds. These are culverts that are 11 feet diameter. You can see the large-scale excavation that was required for their replacement, and the road will be rebuilt on top of these culverts. The next slide is in Hindman. In Knott County, of course, this is one of the many homes that was cut off from the highway when the local bridge was washed away. In this case, the solution, next slide. In this case, the solution was to go downstream and build a low water crossing with culverts and packed aggregate. Our crews did a number of these projects at sites where residents were cut off, needing emergency repair. They were isolated. They had no alternative access when their bridge was destroyed. So this again is the before and after. This slide illustrates the debris removal by the numbers. It breaks down the debris collection by right-of-way and waterway. As you can see, well over 200,000 tons of debris has been cleared from both the rights of way and from waterways. Total of between the, I'm just adding up to 108,000 and 101,000 total tonnage. Total truckloads, you can see that we're beyond 13,000. The next slide. Okay. This is an example of a debris management site where debris is temporarily collected for ultimate disposal. And the next slide shows a series of before. I'm going to show you a series of before and after photos that help illustrate debris removal in Pike County. This is on Kentucky 122, Buckfield Road near the Collins community. This one is a shot of a railroad bridge over Shelby Creek, not far from Virgie. This next one also shows on the left a debris pile in Shelby Creek in Virgie, and the same area cleaned up on the right. The next slide shows this is an important part of our recovery effort, and if Sarah and Matt don't talk about it today, then they'll miss a good opportunity because they did a really remarkable job. They stood up. How many pop-ups did we stand? 11 different locations, right, pop-up driver licensing in 11 different locations in 5 counties. I was there to observe some of them and the number of people that were there to get their credentials. We issued 3,332, have issued so far, 3,342 licenses and IDs have been issued over a 23-day period. So I said questions there. Questions, comments? That concludes what I have to share. But John's here to help me. As I said, he's been a remarkable resource, and he's sort of one of these people who has he also has the added benefit of a great sense of humor and good wit. And people, that's really healthy when you're dealing with a challenging project and a disaster like this. And I just thank him again.
Very
So
good
yes, sir.
presentation. I just have a funding mechanism. I understand we're really wiping out our maintenance to fund all this, or can you just go over a little bit of the funding?
John, I'm going to let you.
You know,
do
if
that,
you don't have to get
I
into
know
the
you've been
weeds.
working on it.
Well, initially we were very concerned about the burden that our maintenance funding would take on this. Since then, in discussions with Kentucky Emergency Management, many of the missions that we are working have been tasked by Emergency Management, and so those bills will be passed along to Kentucky Emergency Management. So the burden on the maintenance funds will be very temporary.
Very good, very good.
And then emergency management on to FEMA, right?
Yes, and Emergency Management will seek reimbursement through FEMA.
I like to hear that one. We
Yeah.
don't know what kind of winter we're going to have and how bad potholes are going to be,
Absolutely.
and to keep things going.
One thing that I failed to say, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, before you, is that I was with the governor and a number of y'all's colleagues. I don't know if anybody here was at the Mountain Parkway announcement, on the cross country announcement on
Yes,
day before yesterday, and the governor made a real point to acknowledge and thank the members of the legislature for all the support in the funding through the legislature. Made a
I very much
real
appreciate
point.
it.
Yeah.
Questions, Representative Fugate? I know this is right into your heart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not really a question, just a thanks to Secretary Gray, Transportation Cabinet, and everybody really, Kentucky Emergency Management, from the top to the bottom. Thank you all for all that you've done. I know everybody needs their road fixed first. I understand that. But you all have done a great job, and I appreciate everything that you've done for our people back home. It's shaping up. The creeks look really good where they're cleaning those out. Kentucky 28, Kentucky 476, 550 in my district. River Caney's looking better. And, it was just like a bomb was set off in those areas. And so they are looking better. People are starting to build back what they had left, getting insulation, sheetrock, and OSB board for their houses. And so, it's a process. Thank you for the trailers, and people are, taking advantage of those and living there in the parks and different campgrounds we've got across the mountains, Knott County, Breathitt and Perry and other areas. So just a word of thanks. I appreciate you publicly. I want to say that publicly. And if there's anything I can do on my end, please let me know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Representative.
Senator Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and mine is the same as my good friend who just spoke. I've driven 3 counties. I have Knott, Letcher, and Floyd. Drastically hit all 3 of them, and I've driven through some of all of them, and these pictures are seen everywhere as I go. And I want to compliment the Transportation Department. Those guys are really been hustling, fixing the roads. I go into Fleming Neon, and you've got pictures just like that in places, and you're having to pass, and the roads are broke off. It's amazing that the department has went up the hollers and started doing the dredge, getting that cleaned out, and working long hours. I've been over there myself, and I've seen those trucks come out at
50 million, I think.
after the normal hour, and them guys are really doing a super job. So I want to compliment from the top down and the bottom up, because those guys are working hard, and I know you all are. And the public over there really appreciates that. It's like it said, everybody wants theirs done now, but they finally figured out to get in line and how the system is working, and taking some time. But the trailers, I was at the thing in Knott County when the governor did make the comment about how the legislative body met and did something historically by getting the budget for this process started, and got the roads and got the first money to Knott and Letcher County that for the funding for this flood stuff. So it's been a joint working process with everybody in state government, the legislative body, and I want to express my appreciation to everybody who's worked hard to get this stuff for the public who we serve back as fast as we can. Trailers, water lines, whatever it's taken to get this, and it's a long job ahead. We all know if you've been in the area. It's amazing. One thing I'll just say that somebody came to me and said some lady from Connorsville, Indiana, is wanting to send down a truckload of stuff, and I said, contact me, and she said she remembered you from living in Shelbyville, Indiana, and I did live back in the '60s and worked up there, and they sent a truckload of stuff down there. So it's been a nationwide help and somewhat too that's picked up on this. So I want to express my appreciation if it's out there to everybody that's we've seen the churches and everybody come in and join with the state, FEMA now doing their part. So thank you for all the department. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I would say that the senator knows from hands-on experience. He's been right there. I ran into him in Fleming Neon, and he was there with his boots on, and he was operating equipment and, for the relief effort. Thank you, sir.
Sometimes you have to do things, you have to get them done.
Yeah.
Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary. Thank you and your team. John, thank you, and Kenny and James, and really thank you for the invitation for Co-Chair Santoro and I to come down and for you and your team to personally take us and help us to understand the magnitude of this disaster. And seeing is believing. It's you can't describe it. And those that live it every day, they understand. But from outside that area, it's just seeing is great. And thank also all your district engineers. They all shared the personnel and equipment, and I never complained. They went on and did their job back in the district. But the day that Representative Santoro and I were there, I was simply amazed by the army of state trucks that were there, and again, they weren't concerned if it was a state highway or a county bridge or a county highway. They were there to help the people, and with the guidance from you and your folks, that's exactly what they were doing. They didn't put up they didn't create any silos and say, no, that's not our problem. You got there, you took care of it, and I appreciate that. During the special session, we budgeted money that you could use immediately. I think for transportation it was 40-some million, and I know you've put a lot of that to work, and a lot of that we'll get back. Any update on the financial portion of what this is projected to cost, and maybe some idea what eventually FEMA will send back to us?
Yeah, I'm going to let John fill in some of the blanks on that, or in my answers. We feel like that was a good starter estimate. We know that there's a lot of work yet to be identified, especially with private structures. And examining the models for reimbursement is still on the table. John has been principal in navigating that funding, those funding mechanisms, and so I'm going to let him speak to it and expand on it as much as we can that we know today. We want to be, of course, careful that we don't raise false expectations, that we don't raise expectations today that this is going to be as much as it might run or cost. I know that from being in the construction business, and then you have additional costs. So we're going to share with you what we have a good sense for today, and then caution of what we don't know about today. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And Senator, as of right now, it seems like the funding that's been set up for transportation may be sufficient. There's a lot of unknowns with the with the amount of bridge replacements that will have to be undertaken in the impacted area, the impact of prices on that, because we've got about every bridge contractor already has contracts in the impacted area with the first 30 that we have let out on dead-end roads, and we've still got plenty more behind it, probably 60 at least that we're hoping to get out by the end of the year. This is bridging Kentucky on steroids is what we're doing in Eastern Kentucky to try and recover. So the impact on prices is an unknown right now. What has helped a great deal is moving a lot of those expenses over to KYEM. We do have a significant unknown with FEMA reimbursement on a number of bridges that were not on inventory, and so there's the likelihood of FEMA reimbursement is greatly reduced, and so the level of impact to the budget could be more substantial in those. So until we start getting a indication of how much FEMA will work with us on those bridges, it's somewhat of an unknown. But as of right now, if things work out as on paper, then the amount that's been allocated towards transportation should be sufficient.
Go ahead.
Yeah, John, bridges not in inventory. What would that? Could you describe what would that mean that they weren't in inventory?
These are bridges over 20 feet that we're required to inspect biennially. Occasionally, it's not uncommon throughout the state for counties to erect a structure and forget to tell us about them. And so in this event, a number of those were, as we went out, we scoured every road because every road had impacts. And during that investigation, we uncovered more structures than we were aware of to begin with. And FEMA, when they look at reimbursements, they look at the repair cost versus the replacement cost. And so they look at the pre-flood condition. And without an inventory or without a inspection on file, it's difficult for them to ascertain the repair cost. And so they balk a little bit and start looking at things that, well, how do we know that's not what it was like beforehand? So that's a long path that we have ahead of us, but one that's not unfamiliar, but it is one that has treachery amongst it. So.
Okay, well, thank you. That helps me better understand, but
Yeah.
not in inventory. I guess that's a lot of county judges' note to self: be sure to report all your bridges.
There you go. But you can count on one thing, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee, that we will be pursuing vigorously the reimbursement. So
Thank you.
We will vigorously.
Thank you.
Just to put in quick context, this number that we're dealing with in the affected counties of 170 in order of magnitude repair and rebuild is more than we would do annually in the entire state in our, as John said, the Bridging Kentucky or our bridge projects. So it gives you a bit of the significance of the scope of the projects.
Very good.
Yes. Yeah,
Now
thank you.
that we're talking about dollars and cents, what about the match? Do we know, is it 80, 20, 70? What, are we aware of anything? Whoever,
So
can you
Yeah,
elaborate?
go ahead, John.
Well, we've got two pots of money that we'll pull from. One is the federal aid routes will apply to FHWA, and they offer an 80-20 match for some, and the balance of the repair costs will go to FEMA. As of right now, that's 75-25, 25% match. They do offer a 30-day window of 100% reimbursement that will be set statewide by Kentucky Emergency Management, and they're collecting expenses to figure out when's the most strategic window to apply that 30 days, and once that's set, that window will apply, and so we'll get enhanced federal match on those.
Very good. Now let's go west a little bit. Tornado. What was our match? Do we know what that was down there?
That was a 90-10 match. That was allocated through Washington D.C. as a 10% match. And
Be nice if we could get that again, wouldn't it?
I understand it's not mine to speak on, but I understand that we're requesting that. I think out west we requested that, but before they had the chance to consider it, the legislation was passed to allocate a 90-10 split.
So maybe a couple co-chairs and members could start voicing that we need a 90-10. That would help.
Wouldn't hurt. We said.
Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, you can wrap it up, sir. Or...
Oh, we're good. Thank you all so much again for inviting us to give you an update.
Good. Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Please come back anytime.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda, update on our regional driver's licensing. Sarah Jackson, who is the Real ID project manager, and Matt Cole, the commissioner, Department of Vehicle Regulations. And Kenny Bishop, you might as well, you need to sit there or, oh, there you go. Good. Please sit down, identify yourself, and you can proceed. 11 o'clock.
I'm Sarah Jackson, and I'm the Real ID Project Manager in the Office of the Secretary of Transportation.
And I'm Matthew Cole. I'm the Commissioner for the Department of Vehicle Regulation, also at the Transportation Cabinet.
I want to begin by thanking you all for having us here for an update. My apologies to those of you who heard this yesterday or heard large parts of it yesterday. But it is great to be able to update you. We are moving very quickly. We're changing, making changes as needed. And so the opportunity to update you is very welcome. Having completed the transitioning of all Kentucky's 120 circuit clerks off driver licensing and ID card issuance by June 30th, per House Bill 453, we find ourselves now continuing to improve on our regional model. The next couple of months will be marked by study and adjustment. For example, is the ratio of walk-in slots versus appointments at each regional office working well for that office? Is the line management, if it's necessary, working for that site? Are our employees' processing skills up to speed? Is further customer service needed in certain areas? Is the design and space utilization of the regional office working? How many more cash lines are needed? These are just a few of the areas we're studying, and we believe that tweaks and adjustments are essential to the ultimate success of any new program. Now, I want to pause and remind you, I'm going to do this every time I speak. The switch to a regional issuance model has been one of the most significant business process changes ever presented to a state government front-facing agency. We know and we certainly expect there's more work to be done, and we're prepared to do it. We want to deliver the best options for Kentuckians, and we've learned that each office has its own unique challenges. For example, in some offices, we see almost exclusively cash payments. In others, we see almost no one using the appointments option. They stand in line all day, but they prefer to do that over an appointment option. While we are still very much a work in progress, I do want to share a few recent accomplishments. We have 32 driver licensing regional offices opened across the Commonwealth. The newest opening was Monday in Bellevue, 103 Landmark Drive in Campbell County. Our daily issuance numbers are now trending at or higher than the daily total issuance numbers of all the circuit clerks when they were in the business. This is a great benchmark. This is a great time to take stock in how far we've come. We've moved everybody off the circuit clerk model. Now are we carrying the weight that the circuit clerks were all carrying? Real ID, I am the Real ID project manager, so I'm going to keep reminding everyone the enforcement deadline is May 3rd of 2023. The real ID adoption rate for Kentucky, that means the percent of Kentuckians opting for a real ID out of all credential holding Kentuckians. It currently is at 15.2%, but I want to remind you the last time we were here just a few months ago, it was at 12.7%. We started in earnest in 2020 at 1%. We're expecting the final adoption rate to be 35% or so we're almost halfway there. But the real story is found in what we are currently seeing, and that is a daily real ID issuance rate of 32 to 35%. So that means that for those people coming to our offices every day, 32 to 35% are choosing a real ID or renewing an already issued real ID. A more intense real ID focused public awareness campaign will begin soon, so stay tuned. Remote options. I know I've been over this, and I'm not going to go into much detail, but I do want you to know that over 223,000 Kentuckians have skipped a trip to a licensing office and renewed their driving credentials online, and that's since online options debuted in 2021, June, a little over a year. And 27,000 people have used the option of renewing by mail. And that was first offered in October of 2021. These two remote options, that have been used, when you add the usage together, show that just under 250,000 of Kentuckians have chosen remote options. It's very popular. Pop-up events. Kentucky's mobile driver licensing program. You saw a slide showing one of our pop-up units and two of our pop-up, we call them pop-up travelers because that's how they spend their work days, is traveling to various counties. They go to counties that do not have a regional office. And we are partnering with county judge executives and libraries in most counties to bring the pop-up programs to that local area. There are 94 eligible pop-up counties, and we've held 160 pop-up events in the first 9 months of 2022. By statute, the county population determines the number of visits, 2, 3, 4, 5 visits a year. We're required to host 220 pop-up visits in total per year, and I'm pleased to report we are on track and will complete and meet that goal by the end of this calendar year. But even greater news is that due to their overwhelming popularity, we are now studying the feasibility of expanding the pop-up visits. So please stay tuned for that. I know you have an interest in Eastern Kentucky flood relief efforts. The governor requested that the pop-ups be dispatched as soon as word broke out as to the devastation. And having helped in a similar capacity at the time of the West Kentucky tornadoes, we already had a bit of a blueprint as to how to manage a widespread effort of this sort. Understand that identification in the form of a driver's license or ID was among the first needs of those affected by the flooding. This identification was needed to start the application process for so many other forms of help and assistance. The mobile licensing program was immediately on the ground, offering services in 11 locations, FEMA disaster recovery centers, and Kentucky State resort parks. That doesn't count our regional offices that were already open and operating in some of those counties. And what comes to mind would be Prestonsburg, Pikeville, Jackson. Those were all affected counties, but we let those regional offices handle those counties. Our services were open to the public for nearly 700 business hours over 23 days. And the days were long, 7 to 7. More than 40 Kentucky transportation employees from regional offices across the state worked at those, and more than, as you saw the figures with Secretary Gray, more than 3,300 Kentuckians were issued credentials. I'm really proud of our efforts on the pop-up units, and I'm also very proud that the office had the vision to invest in all of these pop-up units, not just for the regular statutory program, but these units are ideal for situations exactly such as the ones presented by the tornadoes in West Kentucky and East. They can, they can get somewhere immediately. We don't have to gas up a big RV and drive around. Like in some states, they have some mobile units. So we've been very, very pleased. And I know that we've had wonderful comments from the public about coming to their counties, and we're very pleased with how the pop-up program is going. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to share a few more developments, and then we're of course happy for questions.
Thank you, Sarah. In regards to our budget, this is the year that we will be put under the full load, bringing up to full staffing levels. All planned regional offices will be established, and we'll also see the program come to full operational status. We have surpassed the 16.6% of the fiscal year, and we are tracking appropriately at this time. We have no concerns with our budget, but we will continue to monitor it as the year progresses and continue to report back to you as needed. For our focus for the regional offices now, it moves to process improvement. As this driver's license program begins to mature, we start to focus on fine-tuning procedures, and it will not only be a benefit to our staff, but it will be a noticeable positive effect to our customers. We continue to review our ratio of appointments and walk-ins, like Sarah mentioned. Every regional office is like a fingerprint. It's unique. Each one has a different urban-rural composition, has a different feel to it. So we know that there's no copy and paste, that one size fits all. So we review each one of those offices individually to make sure that we're giving those people exactly the things that they need. We're still looking to improve process improvements, enhance customer service procedures, and we're also continuing to promote the mail-in forms and online processes that have become very popular. And there's not just driver's license and ID cards at our regional offices. Some of the other features that we offer, CDLs, graduated license program, no pass, no drive, ignition interlock devices, reinstatement fees, state traffic school, homeless IDs. So the good news is now with these regional offices, we take a lot of the functions that were originally only located in central office, and we're moving them out to the people. So that way when they come there, it can be more of a complete visit. Some of those are just getting started, and they're kind of in their infancy. We have that central office team that's training and sending people out that information, so that'll continue to grow and get better as we go. For future technology, as the identity industry continues to evolve, KYTC will evolve with it. We are working with our technology team to launch a mobile driver's license program that will enable citizens to put a digital copy of their credential on their smartphones. This technology will offer more options for citizens of the Commonwealth, and it will limit the information that's shared in those particular transactions. We don't want Kentuckians to give up more information that's required for that transaction for their own safety. TSA is a leader of adopting this technology, and we'll start seeing them accepting mobile driver's license in commercial airports this fall. Our II team is still working on replacing the mainframe KidList database and providing us a web-based solution named Kindle. This will produce a system that will be more user-friendly. It will lead to more automated functions, which will in turn help us provide services to our customers quicker. In regards to driver testing, we heard with KSP yesterday when they presented how well that they're growing. We're glad to report that our partnership with them is as strong as ever, and they're great to work with as we see them continue to push innovation out through their side of kind of a shared responsibility. As we're doing the issuance and they do the driver testing, we need to work together very well. Moving forward, one of our next steps will be to continue to evaluate staffing levels at all the regional offices. We will experience growing pains, but the good news is that the goals that you have for our offices are the same goals that we have as well. Perfection is the goal, but it is a long path, and we'll continue to adjust and improve in all areas. We look forward to keeping you all informed, and of course, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple. How many regionals did we originally start out with?
That was ranged anywhere from 18 to 21.
Okay.
And now we're currently at 32.
32. I'm happy. I'm good.
Well, we were very responsible with the money, and we were able to stretch that a lot farther than we thought initially. So the good news is I believe we're down to only 7 counties that have to drive 2 counties over. So that's where we want to be. We want to be close, and with pop-ups, with mobile or with online renewal, with the mail-in, there's an option for everybody because we understand some people are not comfortable with technology, and some people want that instantaneously in their hand as well.
I do get some complaints about lines, and if they're not complaining, they're not happy. And up in Burlington, it's busy, fine. Is there a possibility of putting a sign up saying, now go to Bellevue and see Rachel Roberts, and let them know that they can go other places? Because when they call me, I say, why don't you go to Covington and now go to Bellevue? I mean, are we allowed to do that?
We do. We promote it on social media. We have people that'll redirect traffic. Excuse me. If we know that we have available slots at other offices, we absolutely redirect people. So we didn't know we'd added a new employee to the payroll, but we're glad to have we're glad to have him on the team.
There you go.
But no, we do that. It's a constant rebalancing because just like McDonald's drive-through, you don't know if you're going to have 100 customers that morning,
Right,
or if you're going to have 60. So our section supervisors work with each other to say, look, I've got appointments today, send people over, had a big block of cancellations. So that is constantly evolving every day.
And we will talk with our communications
Something.
folks. They work very hard at signage
Yeah.
for all our offices, and we will convey your message to them about possibly putting some signage
Sign
up. Yeah,
that's
but we
all.
do
That's
have
just a
door
comment.
managers. I do want you to know that we have door
really?
managers that interact with that line. And they've now been instructed to go the extra step when someone gets in line and they're told, well, you can be a walk-in, but we may not get to see you till the afternoon. We're supposed to take cell phone numbers and offer to call them close to that. But we also are giving out mail-in forms, and we're going to stand up some laptops on a tall stand in some offices as a pilot project so that someone can work with someone right there to renew on the spot. I think when people go to an office, they've driven there, and we give them a card, which we currently do, that says you can renew from home. They don't like leaving the office without something. And so if we can help them renew at the office on a stand-up laptop, it was very successful at the state fair this year. We had 3 or 4 laptops on a stand, and we helped many, many people schedule an appointment because they got there without one and the wait was too long to suit them, or we helped them renew right there. So we're going to start doing that at some of our offices and see how that goes over.
Very good.
We have signage also at the offices that lets people know when the walk-in slots are full for the day, and that's also indicated on the website as well, so they can check before they show up.
Oh, very good. Questions, anyone? Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Sarah, and Matt and Kenny, and everybody. Those who are not positive, who to call if you have an issue. Kenny Bishop is our legislative liaison, and I assure you, when you call him, he'll take your call or get right back to you. And Sarah, and I guess a great compliment to Sarah. If you have an issue at one of these regional offices, let her know, because they don't. A lot of times they don't know unless we tell them, and we don't know unless constituents call us, and so relay that to them, because she has been very, very proactive, and when I've called her about issues, and they've been resolved, and it's not perfect yet, but we've come a long way, and a lot of that's because Sarah has she's really stayed on top of it, and I appreciate that. It's you've got a good team, and
Yes, I want to emphasize that. It is a big team, and it's a great team.
well, like I said, we've come a long way. It will never be as popular as those circuit court clerks that were right there in the county, but with all the options we have now, really, once they have that real ID, there's no reason for them to ever have to visit the regional office unless they want to take a driver's test, or that that's about it, and get the real ID for the first time. So hopefully one of these days we'll put some of those regional offices out of business, and because they won't need them.
That's right.
Now, I think that's a trend many years from now that you're going to see.
Yeah.
Downsizing.
Yeah.
And Matt, on dollars and cents, how close are these regional offices or our driver's licensing division? How close are they to being self-sustaining with the fees that we charge?
Well, we're not fee based. We're
Well,
strictly
with license, we
budgeted. So-
charge for the driver's license.
Correct, and that goes back into the photo license fund that covers the cost of the license to be produced. But we're not like the county clerks that if whatever money they make they keep. Ours goes to excuse me, to the road fund, and then we're allocated a budget that covers what we do. So that's the construct that we work under. Of course,
Okay.
if we ever needed more, we know who to come talk to.
Right. Well, I guess I was curious. You know, you are a somewhat fee-based. You do charge a fee, and I was just wondering how close that came.
Well, with the Department of Vehicle Regulation as a whole, between the revenue that we raise and the federal funds that we do, we generate almost $1 billion a year. Of course, our budget is not nearly that big. A lot of that goes toward the road fund and the creation of.
Well, we appreciate
bridges and
that.
roads. Absolutely. Every
Fills
once in
a
a
lot
while
of
we say we
potholes.
need to bring a little bit of that back just to help us out. But you know, you guys are great to work with, and obviously Robin Brewer and her team, you know, they keep us in line. They let us know where the red line is to make sure we don't go across it. And if we get to a point where we feel like there's a better service to be provided to the state, you know, we'll always introduce that idea because that's what we want is top-notch customer service.
Okay. One other question, Mr. and change hats on Cavis. You know, I haven't heard anything about it for a long time, so apparently we're making some progress.
Absolutely.
Could you give us a brief update, maybe,
Certainly,
and
glad
hopefully a knock on wood that there's no problems today. But
No.
there hasn't. I haven't received a phone call for a long time.
No, it's been progressing very well. We've already done boats, we've done titles, all of that's been transferred into Cavis. The last module will be vehicles, which is obviously the biggest, and that's done. That's scheduled to be done in Q2 of next year. So once that gets done, we can release all of the new driver's license plates that all the license plates that we've approved. So that's going to be an easier process. It'll be a quicker process. So that's a big shout out to Heather Stout and her team for developing that solution and bringing something that's really modern. Again, this is what we hope for in driver's license, is what we're doing with vehicle licensing, is bring us out of the dark ages and the mainframe and have it where we can have more options, we can be more nimble, and provide more services. So Cavis is coming along very nicely, and we're excited to get it.
Well, that, like I said, that is good news. One final question, and Senator Turner's not here. I don't know if he's on this. He must be on another committee, but he's really always very interested in insurance and what we do. And I know that's a big piece of Cavis is that the
Insurance verification.
insurance verification. So how is that progressing also?
That will be released with the vehicle module in Q2 next year, and that'll be essentially the complete system. Of course, you know, they'll do a review to make sure that there's no functionality missing, so we can always add something on afterwards, but I think that they're shooting for the end of June for the release. That will be the full Cavis implementation.
I don't know if you are planning any big celebration or anything, but this is those of us who've been around a while and been through these Cavis conversations. It will certainly, if that in the second quarter next year, if that goes into effect and it's successful. We do need to do some sort of.
We'd love to take that server to the top of a parking garage and deliver it. Yeah. And then now the excitement will move from Cavis once it's deployed. The team's already begun on Kindle, and that'll be that same type of program on the driver's license side. And once we get both of those up and going, they'll be connected, because that's been one of the biggest problems we've had in the past, where the two mainframes of the drivers and the vehicles didn't talk. So you didn't have the same customer base. With this being built essentially on the same platform, we'll be able to connect drivers with vehicles electronically, and again, we'll be able to help us produce more information quicker.
Well, that's a very good report. No, thank you, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Representative Roberts, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. On behalf of the people of Campbell County, thank you so much for the new office. For anybody who may be watching, you guys, I think, are doing a great job of trying to identify those locations that are really accessible. This new office is in the same building as the Veterans Administration there. It's on the 12 bus line. It's really, really, really accessible. As you were talking, I just checked your website to make sure there are appointments available, and they are readily available at that location. So I just encourage anybody at home to go ahead and sign up for those times. I have a couple questions for you, if I may, but I will reiterate my gratitude for that. Also, I live 8 blocks away, so I'm almost close enough to be an employee, but I'm a little stretched for time right now. But let me know. My first question is if you could possibly consider adding some Saturdays, a couple Saturday hour shifts, so that some other people in the community might have more access to it. Is that anything you've been working on?
We're getting ready to pilot that on October 1st. So we're going to start with several. We're going to start with one location in each one of our regions, and we'll continue to grow that up and make it more robust as we stabilize the workforce.
That's fantastic. May I ask another one, Chair? Thanks. And I guess I'm volunteering myself to help with that now, or at least
There you
Chair
go.
Santoro volunteered me to help with that. My other questions have to do with the pop-ups. So as you are looking at those pop-ups, can you just talk to us a little bit about how the pop-ups are being used to meet some of our vulnerable population, like, for instance, our homeless populations throughout the state?
Well, with homeless, we're partnered with a lot of the coalitions in the actual area where the people are affected the most. We've set up plans now where people can come in and get that credential, and that organization, we can bill them centrally, so that everyone doesn't have to bring a check in. We've started to do reentry programs for people getting out of prison to make sure they have ID cards. So we're really attacking this on every front. Anyone that's in need of that credential, that's our job to find a way to make it easier, whether it's pop-up, whether it's remote issuance. So if you have an organization that has concerns, send them our way. We're finding a solution for each one of them, and all of them have been very successful, and we want to continue to grow that, because no one should be without that credential. It's the thing that unlocks a lot of the pieces of life. If they need to get a job, rent an apartment, open a checking account, receive medical benefits. If they don't have that, they can't function. So we're very, very proud of what we've accomplished on that so far, but we know that we've also just scratched the surface. So if there's a group in your area that's concerned about that, have them reach out to us, and we'll see what we can do.
And I'd just like to add that that if there are just isolated individuals needing access, they can reach out at the time the pop-ups are advertised for the area. They can reach out to their county judge or their library, whoever's partnering with us, or directly reach out. Our pop-up coordinator is Terry Sebastian, and he's done a tremendous job with this program, with the blueprint of the program and actually the delivery of the program. And we can also work to get them scheduled for some of the slots on a pop-up. But if you're talking about a group of 8 or 10, we make arrangements routinely to bus those people, or they are taken in a van to our office, and we can arrange a certain hour of the day where we give them our undivided attention with an issuing station they can get in and out. We'll work on that.
Absolutely. And one thing we do want to give a big shout out to a lot of our partners. There's county clerks and circuit clerks now that hold driver's license events at libraries, and basically they'll just bring a laptop with the online renewal program. People will come in and they'll take care of them. So the good news is, with that option, really anybody can be an advocate for the program and can host their own events. Tony Kerr, specifically in Russell County, has told every single person, if you don't know how to get a driver's license, you come see me, and I'll sit down with you and we'll do it together. And he's become a hero there, just because, with this change, people are unsure, so they're not quite sure. And when you have leadership like that leading people to the solutions, it makes them feel a lot more comfortable.
Is that it? Any other questions? If not, just a couple things I want to ask about. In the past, people travel and they lose their driver's license and they're in another country. Who do we call?
Well, if we're out of the country, then you want to go to the consulate's office. They will take care of that with passports. If they're domestic, then there's called a secondary screening process that TSA does. It's not fun and it's not quick, but it's the way that people are going to get through that the quickest. They have the ability to use people's social media accounts, online information that they can verify them. So if someone does lose a license and they're traveling, just tell them to go to the airport, speak to the TSA TSA office and let them know they need the secondary screening process. They do it all the time at every single airport all around the nation.
And allow time.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
go very early.
And then my last thing is to come next year in May when this thing is about ready, Real ID as Real ID. Are we going to increase some hours? Because I think you're going to have the
Yes.
flow. Okay.
We are working right now on sort of what I refer to, I guess, as a Plan B group. And we're going to have a group of people in our office that are going to meet very frequently in the lead up to the Real ID and see what because I think the adjustments are going to be different week by week. And we're prepared to look at night, some evening hours, some weekend hours, but we also want to look at the areas where it's in demand and where the biggest, we certainly can't do it at 32 offices. Yeah. So we're going to look at all the kinds of tweaks that are needed leading up to it. And that's why I'm comforted by this 35%, 32% daily adoption rate now. I would be a lot more concerned about the months right before that deadline if we were still only seeing 5-10% every day choosing Real ID. And I want to remind you, because Senator Higdon hasn't, there is another form of Real ID takes many forms. The Kentucky Real ID driver's license or the Kentucky Real ID ID card is just one form of Real ID. A Department of Defense issued military ID is one, a global entry is one, a passport card is one, and a passport is one, among many others. So one of the best ways to check on that is to go to TSA's site and look at the long list of accepted documents. Something called a VHIN card used for veteran medical services, but it's a specific card, but it would mean you get some veteran benefits, medical services, but you don't have an active Department of Defense ID. The VHIN card, I think, is also on that site now. So I do want you all to know that there may not be a rush for as many Kentuckians. We have over 1 million who have passports in Kentucky, current passports the last time we checked.
And we also want to make sure everyone knows that there's not a panic on May 3rd. Their standard license doesn't become invalidated. If they don't need to travel until November, then they have plenty of time to take care of that. We just want to make sure that they know what the difference is. They're still, with the standard, you can still vote. You can do age-related purchases. It's good for identification purchases, any type of transactions. The only three restrictions are the commercial domestic flights, military buildings, and restricted federal buildings. So that's where people need to understand what their lifestyle, where it takes them. I get plenty of calls all the time. Why are you making me get a Real ID? And I said, I'm not. And he goes, I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. I said, then a standard's right for you. We just want to make sure that you're informed that if you need to travel at one point, you will be required to have one of these. And just educating the public, that's what's so important, making them understand what a Real ID is and when it will be needed.
Very good. Thank you for your time. It's very good. Well informed. If not, we'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
So moved. Thank you.
I can't get that thing to lower.